All right, good evening, everybody. So I'm going to call to order the April 22nd Board of Directors meeting and public hearing to order. So our first item for action is approval of our minutes for March 18th. Do I have a motion for that approval?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the April 1st minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
I wasn't at that.
So you can abstain, yep. Good call, Margot. All right, and then I also need a motion to approve the minutes of our April 2nd meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay, great. So we have some really exciting recognitions tonight. And I'm going to start with the Special Olympic athletes. Yes, bring them in. Yeah, sure.
And all of our honored guests, if we can come on in. Basketball players, hockey players, come on in. You're up. File in behind us. The folks.
Preschool together.
Oh,
Still just a little kid.
excellent.
Team's done good this year.
All right, excellent. It's so nice to see all these faces in here. So the first recognition we have is for the Special Olympics. So can we see Isabella Yates, Scotty Wenzel, and Adam Jacobson? And this is for their participation in the Winter Olympics.
And I have another list on top of that.
Absolutely great.
So we have, just kind of this year, we have 27 Special Olympians on our Greeley team. And we've taken part this year in a bowling, and we've taken part in a swim meet, and this Friday, weather permitting, we have our Cumberland County track and field meet up in Buxton. So fingers crossed for the sunshine. For the 27 Olympians that we do have this year, we have Luke Lawrence Adams, Leo Senecal, Ben Lacombe, Easton Munns, Alex Porterfield, Ellie Sedgwick, Avery Clematis, Adam Jacobson, Isabella Yates, Peyton Brown, Kate Weber, Allie Brooks, Michael Johnson, Kason Kent, Luke Bracey, Alexander Austin, Chloe Parent, Sydney Pitts, Annie McIntyre, Andrew Hall, Scotty Wenzel, Ethan Jensen, Ben Payne, Lance Rose, Colby Rose, and Charlie Safian. So we have Allie Brooks here today, and we have Charlie Safian. And then we have Scotty Wenzel, who took part in our Winter Special Olympics, which was in Sugarloaf, and it was a 3-day event. It's always the coldest days of the year. And Scotty placed 5th in the Alpine, as well as earning a silver medal, which he has on.
Excellent.
Isabella took part in the Alpine, and she received a silver, bronze, and a 4th place. And Adam received a silver in the 50-meter snowshoeing and a gold in the 25-meter dash.
Wow,
So
huge accomplishments. Thank you. All right, and next, we're going to recognize the girls' basketball team for their state championship. Is that the right terminology? I am not a sports person, so forgive my incorrect terminology. And we also have here tonight, it's a legislative sentiment, and Senator Kathy Breen, she couldn't be here, so it's just to present to the team for their accomplishment and that the Maine legislature is recognizing their accomplishments, so.
Well, thank you. I don't have anything prepared here, but obviously we're honored to be here. A lot of our girls couldn't make it, and they apologize. We have a lot of high achievers here in Greeley, and they're not off dubbing around. They're all pretty busy people. But speaking on behalf of all of us, we're really just proud of our girls, and thank you. Thank you for recognizing us. Do you want to come up here, Brooke, and say anything?
Yes, so if you could take this.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we sure no one from the girls wants to come up and introduce themselves or say anything?
Yes.
Well, you girls are quite an inspiration to all of the... Well, our town was so proud of all of our sports teams, but you guys did a really nice job, and there was a lot of little people in those seats that was watching on. They were all cheering for you, so congratulations, girls. And we also are going to recognize our boys basketball state champions. Do we have? Okay, great. And you, the boys team also has a legislative sentiment from Kathy Breen as well.
Yeah, kind of just to echo what Coach Flaherty said, thank you for you guys for recognizing us. And, we've been fortunate to have a lot of success over the last couple of years, and the community support that we see every year is, number one, it's amazing, but it's even more amazing because it gets bigger and bigger every year. And not just for our games, but also, I was able to watch some of the hockey games and see the community support there. And I think it's a true testament as far as how great our community is. I just want to share a couple things with you. I mean, if you guys were around basketball, but we accomplished something that no other school had. We repeated as boys and girls team, and we're the only school in the state to ever do that. And I think, speaking for my guys, it's the way that they hit the reset button every single year, every single day, and every single game is a true testament as far as how they approach school and life and basketball. And so I think we're really fortunate to have great individuals in our program and others. But I'm super proud of these guys. I don't even have to ask them to come up and talk because they won't, because I can't even get them to talk at practice, but never mind in front of a microphone. But thank you very much for recognizing us. It's a great opportunity to see a couple faces, but thank you very much.
Thank you. That's yours. Thank you. Great job, guys. All right, so then we also have our boys ice hockey. It was quite a busy sports season this winter. So they are also state champions as well. So do we have any? Oh, we've got our ice hockey coach.
Good evening. My name is Barry Modis, and I'm the very proud boys hockey coach here. This year was my 25th season with Greeley Hockey, and it's been a pretty amazing journey for me as a coach to see the growth of our program. Greeley's had a hockey team for about 35 years. And obviously, we've had some amazing athletes and teams and coaches during the winter seasons for many years. Obviously, last year was an extraordinary season where we won, 5 state championships, I believe, last winter. We've had fantastic unified basketball and Special Olympics. Obviously, the boys and girls basketball teams have set some extraordinary standards for success. But we've been trying to help everybody know and realize that we also have some really good hockey programs here in Cumberland, North Yarmouth as well. Our girls have been a fantastic program, winning some championships, including last year. We were disappointed. We were actually the only major team to not ultimately deliver last year. We lost in overtime in a very painful loss, but happy to be regional champions, and certainly the players did a fantastic job, I think, this year, wanting to kind of bounce back and see if we could really finish the season the way we wanted to, and lo and behold, we were able to do that. We had the second best win-loss record in the 35-year history of the program. We didn't lose to anybody in Class B this year. We lost back-to-back games to a couple of the Class A semifinalists in the middle of the season, but we won our last 9 or 10 in a row and outscored our opponents 27-5. in the last 3 playoff games. So it was a very, very rewarding finish. Very proud of the players. Had a fantastic group of guys across all 4 classes. I'm very proud to say we have a sophomore defenseman back here, Brennan Ronsley, who is a major part of our defensive core. I too am sorry that we don't have more players here tonight. A little tricky this first day back after the break, but we certainly appreciate the support of everybody here who came to a game this year. We've had some great crowds, and it is a thrill to be in Lewiston and feel that kind of support. And I also just want to say thank you very much to the board for taking the time in your evening to recognize us. We certainly appreciate it. We were proud to represent everybody, and we look forward to try to do it well again next year. So thank you very much for your recognition. Brennan, would you like to say anything, or no? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. David, would you like to say a few things, or? Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be here, and I think it's also important to acknowledge the parents, the coaches, and the athletes as well. So congratulations to everybody.
And Chief Small, thank you for brushing off those fire trucks over and over and over again this season.
All right, so the next portion of our meeting, we have a presentation from Dan Westhoven around our, well, it's a program curriculum highlight on pathways.
Just a second, sorry.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dan Westhoven. I'm the Pathways Coordinator, and I just want to give you a rundown of the program, where we're at this year. I want to start with a quote. I've really looked at Pathways as a way of getting students involved. Benjamin Franklin did some pretty cool things with his time, and he had this quote that I think lends itself really well with my philosophy as an educator, and that's something I've tried to bring to this program. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. And I just really look at Pathways as a way of getting students involved. How Pathways came to be is a little history. I think I've got it all. I don't want to be responsible for everything that happened before my time. But it was started as part of the strategic plan in 2015. It was really designed to connect students to businesses. There was a Pathways coordinator hired, and the focus was really for at-risk students. Then Mr. Schaefer was hired for the Alt-Ed program, and Mr. Bay, the gentleman who was in my role formerly, moved on, and I'm really thankful that he did, because I really like this position a lot, and I hope to, I've really enjoyed being a part of developing what this could look like for the district. So our real focus this year has been on expanding the reach to include a broad range of students in a broad range of businesses. A little bit about me. Dan Westhoven, Greeley class of 2000, I'm a Greeley grad. I recently got my master's in special education. I chartered community-based learning programs at 2 local private schools, and that's really where I found my passion for community-based learning, service learning, and like I said, I was really excited when this position opened up, because it's like I can't think of a more perfect fit for my skill set. And so I was hired in 2017 as a resource room teacher at GHS, and that was a great experience. I just really have enjoyed this year quite a bit. Extending learning opportunities, or ELOs, starting by defining it, I think is a good place to be. They're defined as really learning experiences that take place outside of a traditional classroom. So that could be just about anything that takes place outside of this building. So with that in mind, what does that look like? Some of my responsibilities Sorry, I think I have a microphone allergy. Can you guys hear me okay? I never talk into microphones. All right. So I organize credit-bearing experiences for students. I coordinate volunteer opportunities and job shadow experiences on a not-for-credit level. I serve as an administrator for our online learning platform, which is currently Edgenuity. I proactively try to connect with local businesses that can offer a wide variety of learning opportunities for GHS students. I work with students on their soft skills and professional development. That can look a lot of different ways. Some students are really ready to rock and get out there in the world, and others really need some kind of prep for what that could look like. And I try to work with teachers to expand upon their community resources, because that's one thing I've been blown away by is the willingness in this community, and even beyond Cumberland and North Yarmouth, for businesses to want to connect with us. And I don't always know exactly what to do with that with students, so I'm really trying to hit up teachers and departments for them to kind of know that this type of thing could be available to them. The vision, access is really I think the key. We're trying to get accessibility for a community-based experience for a number of different students. Doing that through connecting with businesses is a pretty logical way to go. I think that it's a really cool thing to consider. From my personal experience, motivating students to live, work, and study in Maine. Bridging skill gaps, I'll talk about that in a little bit more in depth soon. And we're doing this, these are just some of kind of the examples of the wide net that we've cast in terms of business connections that are willing or are hoping to work with us at some point in the near future. I'd like to talk about some student experiences right now, because I think it's all about the kids, so let's forget about me. This first student, and the top here is going to show the type of internship that it was, or the type of experience that it was. So the first one was a year-long internship at the Maine Academy of Modern Music. They're located by the DMV in Portland, and it's a former colleague of mine who started this amazing music school. And I was presented Mr. Bay and I met over the summer when I found out I was taking over the position, and he really put this as a really tough place to find for a student. He couldn't find an in the music world that was willing to take a student on for an extended period of time, and luckily I just guilted an old colleague of mine into doing it. And this student, he was a senior, he's got a PATH student. Music is his entire life. He's not really interested in some of the other stuff that happens. And originally this started as him needing a half credit for social studies. And due to, I think, the success of that, and maybe not his willingness to not engage in the traditional English class setting, we rolled this into another half credit experience for him. So he basically interned every other day, and he's continuing to intern every other day. And he does everything from cleaning trash cans to rearranging equipment to helping flyer for events that MAM, or Maine Academy of Modern Music, is having. And it was really, what brings the learning to life is connecting with his social studies and English teachers around work that he would be doing in a classroom, but bringing it to life through this experience. It's been a really interesting thing to learn. I definitely have been excited about how much I've learned through this. It hasn't been smooth or efficient at times, but it has been something that I'm proud of, and I know that the student is really proud of. His quote, "My internship is why I'm still going to school," kind of says a lot. This was a semester-long internship through the Learning Loft. This is a quote from the owner. She's been fantastic. I couldn't ask her better. Thanks for sharing her with us. I can't tell you how happy that makes me to read. I forward these a lot to Chris and others just to get excitement around it. You can't ask for more for that. This student, non-credit bearing, she's a PATH student in the early childhood program, and really wanted during her study hall time, second semester senior year, to have some connections in the community where she could practice some skills. She's a little bit on the fence about what she wants to do next, and I think some real life experience has been very valuable to this kiddo, and clearly she's doing a great job of representing Greeley. Another one, Veritas Prime. This is computer science was another tricky one. There was a really good connection, but they went through a corporate merger this past year at WinXNet, and we weren't able to have a student set up with them in the fall, hopefully next year. But this is a Cumberland resident who happened to have a little book about his company in the desk that Mark had left, and I found it, and I called him, and It took a while to get connected with him, but it's been an awesome experience for this student. And this gentleman is really really big on working with Cumberland and North Yarmouth residents, and really hoping that they can get some of that experience that they need through working with him. And I couldn't, within 10 minutes of bringing the student and Nick together to talk, I was lost completely about what they were talking about. There's a whole other language about the cloud and things like that. But basically, I didn't need to do much else besides facilitate the introduction and have it roll from there. And it's been an awesome fit and a really great experience. Another one, this just wrapped up. This is a really long quote, I won't read it. It's a semester-long internship at Locations Real Estate Group. Basically, this student cranked through all of the work that they had for him, and I have to now find another placement for him, which is a good problem to have. He had passion for film that we didn't really get to explore a lot through this internship, but this real estate provided him with an opportunity to explore a lot of different things. I met with him, and he just said, I got two study halls back to back, and I don't want to be at school all the time. Is there anything that we can do? And we brainstormed, what are you interested in? And he went from photography to small business. I kind of like landscaping, and it just circled back to real estate being a good fit. And it has been a really great experience for that student, and the business is excited about partnering with us again next year. This is a really new connection, Bay Square at Yarmouth. This is much different job shadow volunteer work. This isn't necessarily an internship that takes place over many weeks. These are just some quotes from them. They're just really excited about having students involved. They just really are excited about the energy. And this particular student hasn't gotten a ton of positive feedback in her career as a high school student. And sharing this feedback with her was just amazing. And she's so excited about going every Friday she's attending, and they throw a variety of different tasks at her, and she's really excited. This is a brand new one, leaning on some of the GHS alum. I asked this gentleman to provide a quote for this presentation about what it was like as both a Greeley alum and as an operations manager for a major hotel chain, the Marriott, about having high school students. And his quote it just speaks volumes. They're great. They feel great about introducing students to the industry. Experiential learning is very important in hospitality. So getting someone this hand-on experience while still in high school is both great for the student and the hotel alike. And that's been something I've really been trying to focus on with businesses and with students. It's got to be a two-way street. It's really important that, yes, we want students to be able to have their time filled in safe and productive places, but we also want the businesses to be excited about having the students there. That's how this program is going to grow and thrive, is through repeat business and vetting students and businesses to make sure it's a good fit, and there's a positive symbiotic relationship is really the way to go. So this has been a really cool experience and a great way to reach out to an old friend. Some challenges. I am excited. I love this job, but there are challenges. Students having varying levels in the workplace. It's hard to figure that out. I don't know many of the students the first time I meet with them. Rarely do I know the student. So figuring that out, trying to get information on them, trying to assess their skills, it can be time consuming, and we don't always have time. So trying to assess their skill levels and really making sure that they're ready to go out to whatever their placement is. There's limited capacity. I'm still working as to what that is, but I'm one person, so that is always going to be. I think that's going to be there. Transportation has been an issue at times, and I think it's one that's really helped us focus more on juniors and seniors. Not many freshmen and sophomores have vehicles or transportation, and so that can pose a problem. Certain industries themselves pose really just interesting challenges with field experiences or internships. In the medical field, privacy is a big concern. And while I'm comfortable, I feel really confident that I can get students job shadows and a couple days experience, it's really hard for them to sign up for long-term commitments. But we're working towards that. And then there's programs like welding that students are interested in, and that just poses safety concerns. Finding students for volunteer opportunities that exist is a challenge as well. And the volunteer opportunities it's been a really good way of getting an in at a place. A business or a company may not be as willing as they are. They often want to take it slow, and starting with some volunteer work has been a really good way to do that. And it started the year with needing a lot of placements for students, and then within a few months there was a lot of placements, and then I needed students for them. So it's kind of finding that balance has been a challenge. And then ELOs that are for credit, those pose some unique challenges as well. It's essentially customizing a course that meets academic rigor in a traditional setting for a student. So that is not easy. Some successes I want to share. Most businesses want to work with us. There's actually only been one place that didn't want me to stick around. So I still feel bad about that. But most businesses are really interested and willing. And it's not like I don't approach them with, you need to do this or we're hoping for this. It's let's create this together. How do you want to build this? Many students have been or want to be involved. I'm making my rounds. I'm figuring out the school system, ways to connect with students, different strategies of trying to get students excited, and I'm just finding that these methods have been yielding results. Community feedback at placements, I shared some quotes with you. It's been overwhelmingly positive. Students are demonstrating improvement in soft skills. The student that struggled with emails at the beginning of his real estate placement, towards the end, he was just doing a great job of communicating and following up with me. And then a growing network of students, teachers, and community members that are supportive of this work in the program. For the future, I was trying to think about how to word this, and I just want to keep going. Just want to build upon the momentum that's happened this year. I think it's hard for me to articulate in 10 minutes like everything that's happened, but I think we're on the right track, and I try to get feedback around that. Expand community connections to cast an even wider net. That's been my big goal, is like, let's try to find a place for any student that exists, and that takes time. Continue to increase student involvement and awareness with ELOs. I want to continue down that path. And transform from a reactive program to a proactive program. I think a lot of it had to do with starting a totally new job at the beginning of the year and then having to figure out what I was doing while also trying to keep the students in mind that are trying to graduate and have these experiences that are going to help them, because we do have a kind of turned over hourglass with some of these students that are seniors especially. So there was a lot of reacting, and I think that's kind of how it had to be. But I'm really looking forward to starting next year with hopefully a more proactive way of dealing with things. And then when the reactive stuff happens, I would like to have a starting point already in mind rather than starting at zero. Thank you very much for your time. And does anyone have any questions?
I don't have questions, but I do want to thank you for what you're doing. And it's always a challenge in year one to kind of continue to build the boat while you're sailing the boat. And I'm sure that there's been a couple times where you question your sanity. A couple thoughts, though. The work that you're doing is spectacular, because you're able to take those pieces of what people learn in the classroom and really firmly attach that to something. And it turns the lights on for so many people. Any of us that have spent any time working in employee development professionally, you see this gap, because people don't have those real-world experiences. They've never had pushback from a manager. They've never had that kind of feedback that doesn't always make them feel great. And so in what you're doing, I just think it's spectacular, and I congratulate you for your year one efforts.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Questions or comments? I've just always felt this program was a really exciting thing. I remember the first year that the board, voted to add this position, the one that you're filling now, and it was a leap for some people, and I think it's paid us back. The return on investment for this position is huge, not only for our community, our students, and it sounds like these local businesses. So I think it's really important work. So thank you. And thank you for your presentation.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say, so Dan obviously mentioned that this is his first year in the position. And we saw something in Dan that was like, well, I think he might be the person for the job. And he definitely has been, and there's been just a real excitement about it. Ever since the program started, it's been very exciting. But to have somebody transition in after we had somebody in the position for a couple of years has been very exciting to see even more expansion and growth in the program this year. And definitely Dan has done a great job connecting with businesses and really securing their trust to have students go and work there. And the numbers of students that are involved in Pathways has grown a lot over the last year. And I also want to just thank the board because these are two positions. We have two positions in Pathways, Dan's position, and then we have the alternative ed position that were not here 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And these positions are critical to our school and our district, and I would like to thank the board for agreeing to fund them and be in your support for those two positions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up, Jeff is going to give us a budget summary presentation. And right after that, we will head into the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Part of it is I probably need my glasses. There we go.
I just haven't fixed it.
It's a good trip.
It was a good trip.
Was it? I got your email.
I was picking it up off the computer belt.
I don't have it. Jeff's got it. Oh, okay. I don't want to say bad words when that happens. You didn't?
Surprisingly,
Better person than me.
I have other times.
I don't believe it. The girl said it.
Wrong with the network.
No, you were just connected to the guest network, which I don't think was doing well. Yeah, your laptop's having some trouble getting to the network.
Let me try it. Well,
Oh.
there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
26. All right, we're back. So tonight, I'm just going to give you basically a summary of the budget as to where we're at with the budget right now. And it's not going to let me go into presentation mode, but hopefully that you can see that. Having a lot of trouble with technology tonight.
Can I close this out and restart?
There you go.
Yeah. What? All right.
You're on.
Anytime now. Okay, there you go.
Okay, let's try this again. All right. So this is an update on the budget, FY20 budget, and there's been a few adjustments since March 18th when it was presented. The enrollment is the same. Just refreshing everyone that we have 2,074 students or so. and we're projecting 2,101 students in the fall. And you can see that here. Our enrollment is projected to go up over the next few years. On March 18th, I presented a budget that was 2.94% increase in expenses, with a total budget of $38,426,409. And since March 18th, we were able to make a few other adjustments, just to let you know that we do make adjustments between the time the budget is presented and the time that the board ends up adopting the budget will be at your next meeting. So some of the adjustments that we've made since March 18th, and these are things that we continue to work on throughout the budget process until the end. When we looked at our athletic training contract with Maine Medical Partners, we had a sense that things were going to be increasing in that area. We got a final figure that the contract increase would be $10,000 over the current year. So that's a $10,000 increase. The PSATs at the high school for grade 10, that was an oversight in our budgeting process. The state discontinued funding the PSATs. They used to pick up the cost of those tests, and so that's something that we now have to pick up locally. The high school science equipment, as you know, we're proposing the reduction of the instructional learning team stipends at the high school, or not stipends, release time. And as a result, the science department head at the high school who used to do the equipment management for the science department, that person cannot do that in one block release and do all the other duties that go with being an ILT member. So we're adding that stipend back to the science department. That stipend was there before the ILT was introduced a few years ago. K through 12 allied arts. This is something that I've been mulling over for a while and decided to recommend it at this point in the budget process and not wait till the next budget cycle. This is a small amount of $750, but we have groups in our district, music, art, and physical education. And we have teachers who can provide some curriculum leadership and oversight for other teachers in those areas. Those are critical areas in our district in terms of continuity and making sure that our teachers are connected in a curriculum way. Some of the other items that are adjustments to the budget, and as we're reviewing the conclusion of the winter and what it did to us in terms of snow removal, we were about $10,000 over in the actual overtime costs and decided to make that adjustment now. Typically, if we're over in a certain area of the budget, we would try to find other areas in the budget that we could transfer and take care of those things. However, because we know those are actual overtime costs, we ended up making that adjustment now. Same thing with overtime costs for custodial services, $7,500. Each summer, as you know, we're lifting a lot of projects. Over vacations, we're lifting a lot of projects, and we have a lot of overtime that our custodians are involved with in moving things around in our buildings. Curriculum, the area of curriculum, our Atlas program, which is where we actually carry our curriculum in our district. The user fees, we got notice that the user fees were going up. That was after I presented the budget. So that's around $3,000 for an increase. The high school robotics club, that was something where we had budgeted that money in a different line for the middle school club. We are not running a middle school club at this point, and we needed to budget that for the high school club, and that was just an oversight, making sure that we have those equipment funds in the budget for next year. As the case is in your home, when things start breaking, they really break. We had 2 stoves that basically are broken, and we are transitioning our nutrition class at the high school to an international foods class next year, and we definitely need those stoves to be in working order. So that will cost $1,500 to replace them for 2 stoves. The next 2 items are a result of incidents around racial discrimination in the district. In our efforts to make some improvements in that area. The first one is around training for our students and staff coming up next year, and the second one is around having an assessment that will be completed, and that's part of the plan I shared with the board at the workshop that we discussed. And there'll be more information on equity training and the needs assessment in coming meetings. Other adjustments, we got our health insurance numbers a few weeks ago. We had budgeted 9%. Our increase came in at 7%. So that's an adjustment downward of $148,679. Pre-K harnesses, we had budgeted $15,000 for pre-K harnesses, which are basically on school buses for 3 and 4-year-olds. It keeps students in those seats on the bus. However, when we checked with the state, they said those are not required. And actually, it could be something that we may not want to have on a school bus anyway. If there was some sort of an accident that occurred on a bus, it would be a lot quicker for the driver and other adults who are on the bus to get the students off without having to worry about the harnesses. So we actually think safety-wise, it's better not to have them. And since the state does not require it, and since they're recommending that we don't actually purchase them, we're removing them from the budget. Board stipends, so those are budget to actual costs. We took a look at those stipends that will be paid out at year end, and we don't need as much money in that line, so $2,000 is being removed. At the high school for instructional software, there's a program subscription called News ELA that the school is not needing to use at this point. That's something that we didn't have when we presented it. We were still looking at that subscription, but we can take out $6,500. For the high school library software, we have a subscription to ProQuest, and that subscription is no longer needed, so that's $1,670. So all told, since March 18th, when I first presented the budget, we can remove $101,848 from the proposed budget. So this gives you, I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but that brings the budget down from $38,426,409 down to $38,322,710. That's a variance of $992,914 over the current year. Expenses would be held at 2.66% instead of the 2.94% I originally presented on March 18th as a result. So the emphasis on the classroom, I had shared this on March 18th, that we spend about 73.4% of our budget dollars directly on the classroom. That percentage would not change with the adjustments that I have proposed. A little bit of good news. Well, we had good news on the revenue side anyway this year, but even more good news since March 18th. Shebig Island, we were expecting a loss in revenue for Shebig Island. We're actually expecting a small increase after we relooked at those numbers. So it actually brings our revenue up to 6.88% increase over the current year instead of the 6.80% increase that I first discussed on March 18th. And again, this is our state aid trend. This has not changed. We've not gotten any new numbers. Usually the state aid figures that the Department of Education gives us is pretty close to what the legislature ends up enacting. I don't expect any changes in that number, and we've gotten no signals that the legislature will be enacting something that's different from what the Department of Education has signaled that they'll be giving us. Again, that stands at $11,819,725. Which is up almost $1 million over the current year. The tax effect, even with the adjustments of $101,000, we're still just about at zero. We could be slightly below zero, but when checking with both towns, safe to say that we'll just keep it at zero and leave it at that for now. The per pupil cost, I think this is an interesting slide to show again. I showed this on March 18th. Our per pupil cost is actually decreasing $32. That's unheard of. Usually per pupil costs are going up, up every year. So for proposed FY20, this is our per pupil tax assessment amount, which means we're looking at the tax assessment that we're giving to the towns, and the per pupil amount coming from that tax assessment is actually down $32 over the current year. So this is a comparison I didn't show you on March 18th that we gathered, and I'd like to share it with you tonight. It shows the expenditure increases and the tax increases in our comparison cohort that we usually look at, Falmouth, Yarmouth, and Cape Elizabeth. You can see our district obviously at 2.66% that I'm proposing at this point with a 0% tax increase. Falmouth, their expenditures are at 5.5%. Their tax increase is just above 4%. Yarmouth is proposing an 8% expenditure increase with a tax increase of 4.3%. And Cape Elizabeth is proposing an expenditure budget of 7.77% with a increase in taxes of 7%. So that shows you that we are far below the comparison cohort group that we typically compare ourselves to. Some of that might be state aid. We've gotten a tremendous amount of state aid this year that our other districts did receive more state aid, but not as much as we received. Also looking at the assessment comparison, again, this is, when you take out the aid that we're getting from the state and other revenue sources, and you look at our gross budget, less the revenue, brings you to a tax assessment, in our case is $26,239,011, and divide it by the number of students that each district has. In our case, our per pupil cost for tax assessment purposes is $12,651. When you look at our cohort comparison group, we are the lowest of the four. Last year, we were the second lowest of the four. Yarmouth was lower than us. This year, we are the lowest when you look at the tax assessment that we're actually taxing our communities. This is another way of looking at that information. Again, you can see that we are the lowest of the four. I also like to just talk about the capital budget. The capital budget is a separate warrant article, and it's something that the board can put forward as a warrant article at the district budget meeting. This is a proposed capital budget that the Facilities Committee has already reviewed these items, but I just want to quickly go through them. The first one is room darkening shades. The Safety Committee and just an ongoing capital plan that we have in our district has been to put room darkening shades on all of our classroom doors in our district. That would cost us a little over $13,000 to do that. That's an important thing that we've been wanting to do for quite some time. Roof repairs at Mabel Wilson School, $10,600. We have some minor roof repairs that need to get done. At Mabel Wilson School, as you know, in the proposed budget, we're recommending a third portable unit be put at the school. That will cost $10,000 to set that up. Gym bleacher replacements at the middle school came in far lower than we expected. We were projecting initially almost $90,000 to do some of the bleachers, and because of some new equipment with a company that we deal with, we were able to get that for $18,500. At the middle school, if you've walked around the middle school sidewalks, you will have noticed a lot of cracked areas, uneven areas as well, and the entire sidewalk that goes around the front of the building. We'd like to go ahead and recommend that the entire sidewalk be removed and redone this summer. That will cost $89,000 or so to do those repairs. At the middle school as well, the cafeteria, in the cafeteria on the floor, the chairs have been chipping away at the tile that has been in that school. The school is about 15 years of age, and it's really starting to show its wear and tear. So we'd like to replace the tile in the middle school cafeteria. That will cost $40,000 to do it. At the high school, we'd like to make some improvements in the cafeteria for $45,000. That would include removing the stage that is in this cafeteria at this end of the building. and then making some improvements to the wall area around the stage when we remove it, and putting some flooring in that will extend the floor in the cafeteria. And that should increase the seating at the high school cafeteria so that we can have more students eating down in that cafeteria. The idea is to close the commons as a cafeteria at the high school starting next year, which will reduce our labor costs and reduce other costs associated with running 2 cafeterias daily. At the high school as well, we have some problems, as most of you know, around air quality, air exchange in the locker rooms. It's hard to clean the locker rooms because of mold that grows in the locker rooms. Part of it is that we don't have enough air exchange in the locker rooms, and we'd like to mitigate that issue. That will cost $50,000 to do that. At the high school, in the kitchen, which would be the only kitchen in the school next year, for $10,000, we really need to do something about the heat in that kitchen. We've had a couple of employees who have been ill as a result of the heat in the kitchen during the warmer months of the year, and we really need to cool that space off with air conditioning. So it costs $10,000 to do some ventilation in that area. At the high school as well, we'd like to go in and reconfigure the old band room at the high school, which, you know, we moved the band and chorus rooms to the new art center. It would cost $175,000 to re-outfit the old band room to make it into 2 art rooms that are a little more spacious than what we have. The 2 art rooms that we have at the high school are really inadequate in terms of space for students. When you go into the art rooms, you can barely walk through those rooms when we have a full class in there. So this is important for us to work on that. This would not be money that we'd be recommending through a warrant article at the district budget meeting. These would be funds that we would recommend come out of the Art Center construction bond. We do have enough money left in that bond to be able to complete this work and do that as much as we can this summer and get that done. That's a message that we had made clear from the beginning when we were selling the Art Center, that if there was money that we could use to reconfigure areas of the Institute as a result of the move to the Art Center of the band and chorus rooms, that we would try to do that as well. Next item is at the high school. The Alt-Ed room is above the pool. And even though we have done an excellent job, and I'd like to thank Mr. Poulin for working hard on the Alt-Ed room and making it a classroom environment, it is still removed from the rest of the high school. It poses some challenges with some programming that we want to do. And we would move the Alt-Ed room down to the larger of the current art rooms. We have 2. Once they vacate those spaces and move to the band room. And that will cost about $15,000. It's not just to move them, but to outfit them with certain things that they need to be a productive Alt-Ed program. At the central office, the ADA handicapped ramp would cost $60,000 for us to replace. That's the ramp behind the building that faces the parking lot. That ramp has been deteriorating for years, and actually it's actually moving away from the building because of it, and the soil is actually moving with it. It is something that, because of ADA, we have to pay attention to and make those improvements. Also at the district office for $20,000, there are front steps in the walkway. If you've walked up those steps, they are not very safe because of the unevenness. Same thing with the middle school. When we're talking about the sidewalk, we're having the same situation that's occurring at the district office, and we do need to replace those steps for $20,000. And finally, in the proposed capital budget, elementary ed architectural fees. As you know, we have an elementary education task force that has been working for a few months now. We'll continue working for the next 9 months. And we will be looking to hire an architect to work with that group, and it will cost about $25,000 to come up with a concept design. So all told, the total capital budget would be $581,225 that we are recommending move forward. And of that amount, just a reminder that $175,000 is actually coming out of the Art Center bond. Also, I just wanted to share tonight state and federal grants. These are monies that operate outside of the general fund of our budget. We receive these monies from different sources. Title 1A, Title 2A, and Title 4A and local entitlement all come from the federal government. Gifted and talented comes from the state. And actually, I should rephrase and say the federal monies flow through the State Department of Education from the Federal Department of Education, but they actually originate as federal dollars. So we received $619,000, at least at this point in time, this current year, we received $619,000 in federal and state grants. And we're anticipating about that amount. We don't get those numbers until early summer, but we're anticipating about that amount for next year. And finally, food service. Food service is an enterprise fund. It operates on its own outside of the general fund. The district has had to provide funds through the general fund in order to make up the difference of deficits that have been carried in recent years. Those deficits have been a result of new regulations at the federal level around Whole Foods. We had a drop in participation for students as a result of some of those regulations. We are also running 2 kitchens at the high school. We think we can make up a lot of the difference that we're carrying in a deficit from food service by closing a kitchen and consolidating at the high school. Currently, and this was the FY18 audit, we closed with a deficit of $71,525. We don't have those figures, obviously, for the current year, and we won't have them until the audit is complete. Another thing I just wanted to make the board aware is that every 3 years, state law allows us to ask the voters of our communities if they want to continue with the process of a budget validation referendum or not, and the community can actually vote and say yes or no that they would like to continue or not. In the last cycle, voters decided that they wanted to continue with this process, but they have an opportunity this June to once again signal whether or not they feel that this step is necessary or not in our community. So we just want to throw that out there. The board can make a recommendation or it can not make a recommendation on whether or not voters should consider this item as a yes or no. Our next steps in the budget process is the board hopefully will adopt the FY20 budget on May 6th. On Thursday, May 23rd is our annual district budget meeting. This year, it will be in the Greeley Center for the Arts. And on June 11th is the public budget referendum validation vote. So those are your 3 next steps. Any questions?
Did you have a question?
Not as exciting as Pathways. I know, it's the budget.
Well, and I think by the time we get to this point in the budget process, we've all seen this.
Right.
Everyone at this table has, seen these and thought about all these.
Right.
So barring no other questions from the board, I think we'll move on to the public hearing portion
Yep.
of the meeting.
It should be noted that the board also had a long workshop
Yes.
to discuss virtually every account line in the budget a few weeks ago. So all
Absolutely.
this is pretty familiar. So
Do we have anyone that would like to speak from the public tonight at the hearing? All right. Seeing nobody wants to talk. Okay. Okay, so that was a short public hearing. So we will now end the public hearing section of the meeting and move on to the superintendent's report. And I know this is the point in time that sometimes we wave you guys off. if you'd like.
They like to stay for the superintendent's report, though.
Oh, they do, okay.
It is the best part. It is, they love it.
I usually let you guys go before it, but that's fine.
Okay, superintendent's report. If you came in this morning onto the campus, you might have noticed a bunch of new campus street signs, maroon and white. We'd like to thank the town of Cumberland for assisting us in creating those signs and putting them up on the campus last week. These are new directional signs. Actually, the idea for this came out of the district safety committee. Both the police and fire chiefs recommended for 911 purposes that we have street signs on the campus. So we appreciate all the collaboration from the town on that. We did have very limited options because you can't have any repeats or alliterations. There's all these rules about streets, street namings. Would have loved to have the kids have a contest to name the streets, but we only had very limited options, so hopefully people like the names that we've selected. Pre-K information, we're getting a lot of interest from parents about our public pre-K program that will be starting in September. Right now we're in the process of collecting that interest, and there'll be screenings in June. We'll have our lottery in June as well to make sure that we filled all 32 of our slots that we have for pre-K. But I just wanted to let the board know that we're getting a lot of interest, which is very exciting. We've continued to have a lot of meetings and planning meetings around pre-K. Harvest of the month. April's focus was around dairy. May's focus will be blueberries, my favorite, and they will be featuring the Wild Maine Blueberry Parfait on Thursday, May 16th and Thursday, May 30th at all of our schools. So this Harvest of the Month is to illustrate and promote local food options in our food service program. We have a Equity and Inclusion Steering Committee that we're hoping to start in the fall. And we've had a workshop with the board to discuss this as an idea. I met with board members Ann Kerr and Tyler McKinley to help start the process, and we have an informational meeting that we're tentatively have set up for May 20th at 4 o'clock. This informational meeting will be open to any student, parent, or staff member who is interested in possibly joining this committee or just learning more about what this committee's work will be. And so we'll be hosting that meeting, and we're asking anyone interested to RSVP to our district office at 829-4800, and make sure you talk to Fran Prentice. So there was a spelling bee that Foundation 51 hosted. I'd like to say that the administrators did host a team at that particular spelling bee. Chris Hoffman, Corey Muncie, Ashley Caswell, and myself joined a bunch of parents for a very fun evening spelling words. And I have to say, maybe we didn't get the trophy, but it was for a really good cause, and it'll be in, we have a photo of us at the, we're laughing in our photo, probably because we just didn't get a word right or something, but we had fun, and it was a great cause. And I want to thank Foundation 51 for hosting this event. We have a lot of congratulations for students. Anna Rayleigh, this month's Lions Club Service Student Award winner. She's being recognized for her efforts to establish the youth court at the high school, a really great program. And that's helps promote restorative justice and having students really work with other students on what ways that they can help improve the climate. Congratulations to Corin Farnham, Christina Gove, Camden Bublo, Pablo Barnsteel, Kyle Sitters, and Lars Bodie, who represented the high school in Maine at the All Eastern Honors Music Festival. Maine was allowed to send 22 students, so the high school here represented more than a quarter of the entire state delegation. Kate Ramsire, class of 2021, was chosen to sing in a vocal master class in April at the University of Southern Maine, which was sponsored by the National Association of Teachers of Singing. She was one of 5 high school and college level students who performed solo and then received coaching from an expert in music. Congratulations to Tim Ostergaard and Alex Collins for competitively auditioning and winning seats in both the Portland Youth Wind Ensemble and the Portland Youth Symphony Orchestra. Congratulations to Kira Shepard and Anna Lip, who were chosen to participate in the Casco Bay Artisans' 4th Annual Regional High School Art Show. That should have been Artisans. Great job to all the poetry jammers who took to the stage at the Art Center a couple weeks ago to recite poetry. I'd like to thank the PTO for hosting this annual tradition. It's great to see the students that get up as young as kindergarten and read their poetry or recite their poetry and just have a lot of fun with that. Congratulations to Chris Martucci. Chris was awarded the National Spanish Exam Global Citizenship Scholarship for a 2-week Spanish immersion program through the Concordia Language Villages in Minnesota. I was just in Minnesota. I didn't see that part, but congratulations to Chris. Congratulations to Caleb Duff, Andy Moore, and Jake McDonald for being named the Press Herald's 2019 Varsity All-Star Hockey Team. And bravo to the Greeley cast and crew of West Side Story. And I think, Madeline, you were part of that, right? No, your sister.
My sister.
Your sister. I always get that confused. An incredible production. It was sold out performances, all 4 shows. Over 2,000 folks attended the play. It was just well done. A great job to all. And finally, congratulations to all the Greeley students who competed in the Maine State Science Fair in March. Sella, and I know Sella's last name, I should remember it, won 2nd place in biological sciences and engineering and won an award for community innovation. And we're really excited about that. Emma Fitzpatrick won a scholarship to UMO, and Emma Raven won 3rd place in environmental sciences. And finally, I'd just like to say, in remembrance to public servant and good friend of MSAD 51, I'm very sad about the passing of former state Representative Dale Deno last week. Dale actually was on the school board, served on the school board many years ago, served in the legislature, and it was a tireless advocate for children and for public education. And I would like to offer our deepest condolences on behalf of the district, which we have done, to his wife and family.
Thank you. All right, so our next item is public comment. Okay, so seeing no public comment, we're going to move into our committee reports. So I will start with finance, although we just got a finance update. But Mike, if there's anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, as Jeff said, we had 2 weeks ago we had the workshop where, as Scott told me, we went through 1,076 individual line items on the budget. Congratulations, everybody. And tomorrow, we're meeting again at 8:15 to review the results of tonight.
Policy, Kevin.
So, let's see, this evening we had an exciting meeting up back, talking about a number of things that we'll be advancing for first readings shortly. Tonight, there are 2 items that are first reads, and so JIH, which governs the questioning and searches of students, as well as JIHR, which talks about the procedures. We had discussions, extensive discussions, and Jeff, you can build upon this, but Chief Rumsey came over and talked about it from the police department perspective. We had a number of the principals weigh in on that as well, and Corey helped with. We tried to see if we could combine both into one document, but we failed miserably, and so there will continue to be 2. Jeff, do you want to talk to any of that?
Yep, there's some changes that were that we recommended were made in the policy, and really, again, as Kevin said, a lot of those came from Drummond and Whitson, but we made some modifications also at the local level around actual searches and how far the district or administrators would go on searches. But I think the police were very helpful in helping us with the relationship between the school district in law enforcement and how we can work together on those things.
Really helping us to better understand who plays which roles. So if you get a chance, or when you get a chance to review these, if there are any questions, please send those along and we can get clarifications as necessary.
So, everyone, obviously, what Kevin said, read that. I just know how long we've been working on those policies because we saw them last year. So I read them today and I think they look really good, but obviously reach out to Jeff and Kevin because, yeah, those are difficult policies to get right. I think you guys have done it. So moving on to curriculum, Tyler is not here this evening. I don't know, Margot, if there's any, I don't know how recent.
I don't remember the date, but we met our final time with the committee to propose a new graduation policy.
Okay.
So I think that the next step was that was going to go to the policy committee. So
Great.
I think if we haven't handed it off, it's on its way.
Excellent.
If I can, yes, that was one of the two that we looked at tonight, and the work that you did on that was spectacular to try to balance that between the proficiency law that's no longer and then moving forward. Do you want to weigh in anything with the graduation requirements, or do you want to wait until we have the first read?
Wait.
Okay.
At this point. Well, I'll weigh in one thing and just say that the curriculum committee obviously worked hard along with the work group that you had around looking at the proficiency language that was in the graduation policy. And I think our goal was, because that law is no longer on the books, to remove the language around proficiency from the graduation policy. And that's what the policy committee spent a lot of time on tonight. We're hoping that there's a second step in this process where some other more specific requirements for graduation are looked at next year. But the goal really around that group was to bring forward a new graduation policy that removed that proficiency language since it's no longer state law.
I think as a group, we talked about some of the things to maybe be added and realized that our group wasn't made up of the proper people to start thinking those thoughts.
Right.
So, yeah, we look forward to that.
Scott, any update on negotiations?
Sure. I'm pleased to report that at the May 6th meeting, we'll be having an executive session to discuss the tentative agreement that we've reached with the Secretary and Ed Tech bargaining unit. So, and we'll actually have a vote on the board meeting for that as well.
Excellent. Mike, facilities?
We're in sort of that brutal lull in between identifying what projects we hope to accomplish and what they're going to cost and whether or not we can afford it. So our meeting was postponed this month, and we hope to reconvene in May once we have some final numbers, and hope that the board will continue to support capital planning for facilities.
Madeline, I know you were going to give us an environmental stewardship update.
Yeah, so I'm reading for Tyler McGinley, so I'm just going to read from my email. So plans as far as environmental stewardship. Coming up, we have a meeting with Revision Energy, so this will happen next week, to further discuss the Greeley High School solar project along with student government. So it's going to be kind of a joint meeting discussing that. There are Arbor Day plans for May 23rd, where the green teams from MIW, GMS 4 through 5, and 6 through 8, and Global Awareness Club and Life Skills students at the high school will be planting 3 dogwood trees at the high school. And then in addition to that, there's not a definitive date yet, but there will be a screening of the Lorax, and proceeds for that will be going to Global Awareness Club, and that will be happening the 3rd full week of May, which is Arbor Day week. And then also happening that week, so you'll get more updates closer to those days, is the Outdoor Classroom Week, which is planned the same week as Arbor Day, which will be the 3rd full week in May. So,
Excellent, thank
Yeah.
you. So many good things coming out of that committee. Student reports. Back to you, Madeline.
I don't have much to report. We just got off break, so this is our first day back for seniors. kind of winding down. If we have senior projects, I think we have about 2 weeks left, which is kind of crazy. But for everyone else, it's a couple more months, I think, or at least weeks. So, yeah, that's kind of what's up.
Thank you. All right, so no communications for this evening, so we're going to move into our items for action. I'm going to let you take the wheel, Kevin.
Sure, thank you. So we are having our second reading of policy JLFA, and that's a child sexual abuse prevention and response. For everyone who has spent time reading this policy, it really incorporates 3 different areas talking about further defining or providing definitions that we should be looking for, the procedures that govern any actions that staff is taking, and then lastly, and probably most importantly, is that staff education piece. This is coming forth from the Department of Education as well as Maine School Management. And I would like to make a motion that we approve policy JLFA, Child Sexual Abuse Prevention and Response, as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Any questions? I know for me this read very much, it's, kind of like that melting of statute, best practice, legal recommendations. It was kind of, seemed very much an update, but a really strong update.
And a critical one. And
Yeah.
I think that it's laid out very, very well.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would just add that we have already trained almost all of our staff. There's a couple of groups that we're still working to train, but since the law came out, we've gotten ahead of that to try to get the training done for our existing staff. Starting next year, we'll be training all new staff coming into our district so that we make sure that we've got everybody.
Great. Anyone else? All right, all in favor? Okay, and now we're going to move into a workshop portion of our evening. So Andy, let us know when we're offline and we'll convene for the workshop.